All right, Lonesome Report. I'm Jim Mundorf from Southwest Iowa with Shad Sullivan from, let me see if I can remember, the headwaters of Bitter Creek in Archer County, Texas.
That's right.
Only Texas, if you don't know every county in Texas like all them Texans do. But we get together. We're going to try and do this once a week where we talk about kind of what's going on in the world and kind of bring it back to agriculture or give a little more of a middle America perspective on things that I feel like some people I feel like it's kind of missing, and I think some people also think that perspective is a little bit missing. So, Shad, main thing on everybody's hearts and minds and in the news is the people of North Carolina, West Tennessee, or I guess I don't know
East
all the
Tennessee.
places it hit. Yeah,
East
the
Tennessee.
Hurricane Helene,
Yeah.
and what's
Well,
going.
first of all, my heart is broke for those people because the videos that are now coming out of the initial impact are gut wrenching.
Did
And
you
I
see the
think
one where
that,
I don't even know how that happens, where the water just shoots through? It's like a dam broke or something. The
yeah,
guy's like on his porch and
yeah.
it
Well,
shot.
I think that's what they call a real flash flood. Like, I mean, it
Yeah,
rains so
man, alive.
much. They said I heard that they were getting 10 inches per hour, and some of those places got 30 inches up in the high country. Well, when you got that kind of rain coming, it's going to be if 30 inches and some of it soaks in, you're going to have
What would
2 feet
even
of
that look
water.
like coming out of the sky? It's got to be like a faucet almost. 10
It
inches an
does.
hour.
It does. It's
Or
scary.
multiple faucets. Like they're not drops. They're probably just straight, almost.
Yeah, it's like more than cats and dogs, right?
Yeah.
Right? But it's so number one, I'm so thankful I live in the desert.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about like what would ever there's nothing. There's no I mean, we've
A
had
fire, a
tornadoes and
fire,
stuff.
yeah, a fire could devastate us. But I think for me, the whole point of talking about this is number one, those American citizens are suffering. And I've heard stories of where there are little kids running around with no clothes on, can't find their parents, they haven't eaten in 3 days. All of these people are suffering. I saw a video yesterday on a news channel that a woman and her parents and her little boy, 9-year-old little boy, were on a roof and it hit
I
a
saw that.
power pole or something and it split and they all went down the river. The mother lived, but the little
Yeah.
boy, she said his last words were, Jesus save me. And I mean, that tears at my heart
Oh, I
because
know that.
Jesus is going to save him, but you don't know the
Well,
suffering they're
and then
going
the
through.
mother has to live the rest of her life like with that image in her head. I just can't
Exactly.
imagine.
Is terrible. And now you got all of these rumors coming out that the federal government is seizing lands. I know there was one campground that they came in and said you have 30 days to, it's uninhabitable. You have 30 days to get everything out. Word is that coming from? You have rumors that FEMA is threatening to arrest people that are bringing in donations. You have rumors that they're seizing these donations and putting them in these storage facilities and then you have to apply for it. And I'm saying, no way. This is the time that the American people say no way to the government. We got to take in and go back. And there are people going in there with like mules and donkeys. And then I just saw a news deal where one guy, he got on there and did a video and he said, we have equipment and we had the roads open before the federal government even got there. And so, I mean, they're taking it into their own hands, but I'm really concerned about the federal government's role in this. And I know I'm going to sound like a conspiracy theorist, which I kind of am, but we're talking about people are the buzz is that these are man-made weather events. And I'm like,
Yeah, I don't.
how do they make these man-made weather events? How can it be? But
We
then I
gotta shut. I don't. That's
buy that.
nuts. No. Now we gotta slow it down here, Chad.
Okay.
My saying is knee jerk reactions are always the worst reactions. So
Right.
I would say until you can get that nailed down, you have gotten out in front of a couple things that you were wrong about in the past. So
I've never been wrong about anything.
okay. And also like the craziest theory, you can't go straight to the craziest theories of all.
Well, no, I'm just
That
talking
sounds
about
like,
rumors. And I
yeah, I
said,
know, but I feel like we shouldn't be spreading rumors.
well, I'm just, this is just a conversation. These are just rumors.
All right.
The, here's the deal though. I always thought one time I went to, a convention in Colorado Springs at the fanciest hotel, the Broadmoor Hotel in Colorado Springs. And Ted Koppel was a speaker there. And Ted Koppel says, you have to understand that we have technologies that you don't understand. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? And he pulled up his cell phone and he said, do you understand that this was technology 50 years ago? And the feds have just now let you in on this technology. So there is
That's what
technology out
Ted
there that we
Koppel
don't
said. What year
understand.
was that?
That was 2000. Let's see, Thea and I had been married. That was 2015.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
don't think they
And it
that
was an
cell
interesting
phone.
conversation. And he
I mean,
was
I
like,
guess they had cell phones. I don't know. I guess I
yeah.
don't know the timeline, but I don't think they had iPhones 50 years ago.
Well, I don't know. Remember when we were kids and we were watching this CIA talk like this? And
Yeah.
now we all have their,
But were we, or was that like a James Bond movie? I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. I don't guess I ever saw I don't
I
guess
guess
I ever
we could,
saw
if we want to go down these paths. I brought up the moon landing in my last speech.
Yeah.
A lot of people are talking about the moon landing now. Have you seen the
Mm-mm.
Joe Rogan?
No.
So I don't know. I don't think we
What are
should.
they saying?
There's just one question out there that I would like answered. What have we done? What could we do in 1969 that we cannot do now? I'm not saying we didn't land on the moon. I'm just saying that question is, I don't know an answer to it.
Are
They
you
say
questioning whether we landed on the moon or not?
I'm questioning. I don't even know if I'm question. I don't.
That
I'm
sounds
just saying. What's the answer to that question? Like
that sounds
that cell
conspiratorial to
phone you
me.
just that cell phone you just held up was it would take like a building to hold the computer in 1969 that cell phone.
Correct. That's right.
And so when these people like come on Joe Rogan, like Joe Rogan said, he doesn't. So Matt Walsh was on the Joe Rogan show, and they got into the moon landing for some reason, and
Okay.
he brought up all these questions that people have, and I somehow ended up listening. I was in a truck one time driving, and I was listening to Joe Rogan talking to Tulsi Gabbard, and then that podcast ended, and the one that came up right after it is he was talking to this guy who 100% does not believe in the moon landing, and he's done all this research, he has this website and stuff, and the stuff that he was saying, it was kind of like, huh, yeah, but oh yeah. Oh yeah, and so it's kind of it's one of those things where I'm like I'm not saying we didn't land on the moon, but the one question that always sticks out is
But
what.
now you're questioning it.
And so we wanted to talk about the hurricane, and now we're talking about the moon landing. But then I
Well, I
saw
mean,
Megan Kelly's talking about she thinks it's nuts that anyone would think that we didn't land on the moon. But when you think about it, I don't know.
all I know is I go
Because
back
what
to
is the
the,
answer to that question? We're so much
well,
more technologically advanced.
mhm, we are.
And in 1969, they flew people to the moon and had a live video broadcast of it on television for everyone to watch.
And
And
who
we can't
recorded that?
even
And who
come close
recorded
to
the
that
landing?
now. And we can't even come close to. So one thing that Joe Rogan says is he's like, I can see that they did it and maybe they faked the video.
Okay, yeah,
And,
I can
and
see
that
that.
was, or something like that.
Yeah.
Because, and Matt Walsh is like, well, how do you have that many people involved in that big of a program and none of them ever says anything? And like, that's the other thing. Like,
I agree.
what are
And
the odds?
I agree with that.
There's never been a person involved in that program, I don't think, that ever came out and was like, yeah, we didn't do it. And we faked the whole thing.
I will tell you this, my aunt who just recently died, she was friends with who was the first guy to walk on the moon?
Neil Armstrong? Is that who it was?
No,
Get them mixed up.
it
Buzz
was
Aldrin.
it
It was Neil Armstrong. The
it was
small
one of those she
giant
was
leap for
friends.
mankind. That was Neil
Yeah,
Armstrong. Pretty sure.
yeah, she was friends with one of those guys, and um I always just believed that we walked on the moon. I don't know.
Yeah, me too. Before
I
I
don't.
was driving in the truck and this podcast comes on. And
Yeah.
then, and so my thing in my speech was I came in I talked about this in North Dakota and I came and I was talking all about thinking critically and things like that. And I came in and I was t told my son who's a history nut and a geography nut and all this stuff. And he watches
Well,
YouTube all the time. And I was like, do you know there's people who don't believe in the moon landing? And he was like, oh yeah, we never did that.
he did?
Yeah, he was like he knew all about it. He knew all like the flag
Oh
wave.
my
Like there's
gosh.
all these different theories about and video showing like and if you watch those videos, they do seem super hokey like
Yeah,
now,
they
but
do seem hokey.
also it's from the 60s. So it's like but yeah, like and he's like, "Oh yeah." He doesn't
That's
know at all.
amazing.
And he's 12. So it's like
Yeah.
and maybe he's gonna grow up and be like, "Can you believe our parents believed that?" But we were
Hey,
trying to talk about the hurricane, and boy, that
yeah,
was
sorry about that.
cold, wasn't it?
Hey,
But
listen,
what
my
I
heart
want, go ahead.
no, I just want to say my heart goes out to those people. And I talked to a guy about getting some beef out there, and he's like, I'll contact you. He said it's chaotic, and we really don't. I mean, I can see where they don't have a place to cook beef. And I don't know. My heart just bleeds for him because, man, that water coming down those hollows, it's terrible.
Yeah. And what I wrote down, like I just taken notes right before you got on, and I was like, well, the one thing that this has shown is truly like the failure of the government. Like right now, we're 7 days in. I saw something this morning that like Bush was just ripped a new one because he took like 3 days, I think, to go to Katrina. And Biden's just showing up. It's been over a week, I think.
Well, and now they're saying we're FEMA's out of money. FEMA's out of
Oh
freaking
yeah.
money, and we're giving it to the illegal aliens. And we sent $8 billion
They,
to Ukraine last week, and they're going to give these families $750 a piece.
well, they
This is
gave the
just
people in Hawaii, and this just I've loved it because people in Hawaii have totally been forgot about. That goes
totally.
back to the my I was listening to Tulsi Gabbard because she's from Hawaii, and before the moon thing, and uh and that's what she was talking about. The people they got 700 bucks. Those people had their houses burnt. They shut the water off while the city was burning, and they wouldn't let people use their own water.
And did
They
you
got
know?
700 bucks.
Yeah,
There
and
could be
did you
people
know
in
the
prison over that deal, and there probably should be people going to prison, like these federal government people who've given
Jim?
$1 billion to take in fly illegal immigrants into the country and put them up in the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City, and and now these people
It's maddening, and
have
I'm going
paid
to tell you
taxes their
something.
entire lives, been good American citizens, patriotic people, and
Yep.
and this isn't race, class, or any other
Nope.
thing. This is just American citizens
Yep.
versus foreign foreign people who are not American citizens, and you're favoring the other people. You're favoring the
Well,
people that
that's how you destroy a country, and that's what they want to
exactly.
do. That's exactly what they want to do. But here's the deal: did you know that the federal government went in and eminent domained all of that land, all of those
Yeah,
homes in in Hawaii? So what's the difference between
right.
Hawaii and South Carolina and Eastern Tennessee?
Yeah, I don't know, and maybe I don't think the people are controlling the weather, but I could see every natural disaster. We just come in, we tell them we're not going to be rebuild, and if that I know they did that in Hawaii, and I don't know where the thing is, but I feel like that Hawaii deal should be so much more of a story
Well,
than
so
it ever
what are
was
your
because now we
thoughts?
just don't know. Everything just got forgot.
Yeah, it's up in the air. But what are your thoughts on HARP? The weather control system HARP called HARP. You don't believe it?
I haven't really looked into it that much. I mean, I keep seeing more and more about it, and I know
Well,
that
here
there's
here's
cloud
what my
seeding and there's they have those airplane deals and all that stuff,
those are real.
but I don't know. I mean,
Here's what my
I guess
concern.
I don't like to talk about stuff that I'm not very familiar with. And so I'm not gonna, and that's our next topic, but
Well,
go.
I'm not very familiar with it either, but my concern is I tie it back to sustainable development because under the UN's sustainable development rules, their goal is to force people into these city centers. And they're on their website, they actually said that natural disasters are going to force people to essentially locate. And so here we are, got all these natural disasters forcing people into city centers and
Well,
out of
natural
their
disasters
home.
are going to happen. So,
They're going to happen. It's
yeah.
part
So
of
I think instead of going crazy and saying they're making the national, I'm not saying. I'm just saying, that's written down. Like what I'm saying, like you read that on the UN's website. Use a
yeah,
natural disaster to force people
right.
off the land.
I'm just tying it
That happens.
together.
So we can't say, the UN didn't say let's create natural disasters. The last thing on the hurricane, or if you want to say something else, but I did want to say, like we look at all these failures of the federal government and all these, they're FEMA out of money, all this stuff, and they're trying to stop local citizens from helping. But really, like
Yes.
if you look at the success, where the successes are local citizens. Like they're
Yeah,
just
100%.
U.S. people come together. They jump in their helicopters. They fly out there. They haul their helicopters
Yes.
across the country. Guys hauling his mule trains. Those mule trains are awesome. I wish
And
I had
that's an awesome
I wish
sight
I
to
had
see,
about
man.
six mules and we could that I mean that would be, but yeah, that's where I think as much as and I get stuck on this too, focusing on the negative and the failures of where our tax dollars go, but we should also focus on the positive, and that would maybe kind of wake people up a little bit more too, because when the money's kept in the private sector and you have American citizens that have helicopters and they have mule trains and they have the ability to take time off of work and go do these things, that's who gets this stuff done. Where when the economy goes, and that's why we need a strong economy, that's why we need a strong private sector and all that kind of stuff, because those people um, have flourished in life. If you own a helicopter, you've done
That's
pretty
right.
good. And if they're not around, there's nobody. There
Well,
would have been
Jim,
nobody for a week, and they won't let the mill. I'm going back into the failures, but focus on the success. And the success is the private sector, and that's
well,
where the money should stay. Like if you want to get back into government and private versus public and all that crap, money. Who's been more successful in this deal of
no,
helping
this is
people and saving people?
it's a great example of how our government was designed from the bottom up,
Yeah.
right? And so it's all about local community. And last night I was driving here. I'm going to get a little negative, but for the last 3 days, somebody on our road to our house, which is a very well maintained road, um, they must have been partying in the night, and they just threw like 30 beer bottles out in the ditch here, and then they went up 100 yards and they did it again. And I drove by it 2 days in a row thinking somebody from the city would get it, and they never got it. So last night I stopped and I picked it up, and I'm like, this is a heart issue. This is an issue deep within that says, I don't care about myself, much less my community. But what you're seeing in the Appalachians is community. Come unite. I think it's incredible. And those communities have the task to rebuild themselves by their own people. And it's I think that we are taxed enough where we should have that money not going to Ukraine, not going to Israel, not going to wherever else. Taiwan, they said they sent 450 million to Taiwan this
Egypt
week.
and
Well,
yeah,
why are we not holding that, knowing that we're getting these natural disasters? There's a fire in Wyoming right now that's burnt 40,000 acres, burnt people's ranches up. That is the safety net that we've designed and created. So why are we giving it away?
yeah, and
That's my thoughts.
FEMA, federal emergency, and they're spending money to fly people in here and house them in fancy hotels. Insane. And
Insane,
I don't want
brother.
to get too. I mean, we
Hey, well, here's a
spend
good
too much
segue.
time on politics, but how do you
Here's a
vote?
good segue for you, Jim. You talked about Tulsi Gabbard, and I was able to see Tulsi Gabbard this weekend
All right.
speak, and she
Y'all,
was, oh man, she was phenomenal. So we were invited to go out to Washington D.C. and to this event called Rescue the Republic, and it was basically an event where a bunch of former Democrats
so
came
you're
together and
invited.
say, "Hey, we're abusing the Constitution. We have to change this country and bring it back to the center." and honor the Constitution. So there was Tulsi Gabbard, and Jordan Peterson was phenomenal. And then Russell Brand, who I didn't know who Russell Brand was, and my wife made fun of me because of it, but he was phenomenal. Um, uh, the best one there was Del Bigtree. I mean, Del Bigtree was powerful and emotional, and Lara Logan was there. She's actually the one that invited me out there. Her and April Laird, and gave us VIP tickets, and we sat there from noon to 8 o'clock that night. And my wife was like, "I'm getting tired," and I said, "I am running this through. I'm going to follow this through." And there was about 30 speakers, all of them who were famous and all this stuff. I didn't know some of them, and there were some great singers, but it was just a powerful event that brought pride of country and honor of the Constitution back to America. And because we were on the front row, we got these VIP seats. I looked back a few times, and of course the security was incredible. And I bet there was 15,000 people there, and it was right at the base of the Washington Monument. It was so awesome, and it was so inspiring, and I shed a few tears. And Brett Kinsey, me and Brett Kinsey, my wife and my son, Eric Roper, Eric Nelson, Freddie Keaton, and who else went with us? Oh, Dave Hyde. They all met me out there, and we went, and it's just phenomenal. And then they went and met with congressional aides the next day about beef industry stuff. I came home and needed to start getting my weed in, but we're going to do the same thing. I talked to Del Bigtree about doing the same thing in the central part of the United States, and it's going to be pretty awesome. And he said, "Let's do it." So I started to work on that yesterday, and it was just awe-inspiring.
Hmm. I haven't seen much about it. I mean, I actually I was reading them. So I've said this multiple times. Matt Taibbi, who's a journalist that
He
I
was
really
awesome.
respect. Yeah, and I was reading his speech, but and I keep saying he wrote a book about Trump, and I can never. It was I just looked it up now. It's called Insane Clown President. He wrote a book about the 2016 election called Insane Clown President, and now he's going to a rally because the Democrat candidate is so bad. He's going to a rally to get people behind Trump.
Yep. And
Um,
he was like, he's young. I would say he's younger than me by 10 years, but um Jim, his speech was so incredible, but he's not a great speaker. He's a
yeah,
great writer.
right.
He's
Yeah,
not
he's
a
a
great
writer.
speaker, but it was like
But if
him
you
and
look at
Lara
what he
Logan.
says, like, yeah, he has a
Uh,
hard time kind of spitting it out
it was
sometimes.
so good. And him and Lara Logan worked together on 60 Minutes a lot, and they're very, very good friends. And so that was cool to see their interaction. And then Lara Logan. Okay. And then there was a comedian. He's a little short comedian well, there was two short comedians, but one of the masters of ceremonies he's a little bit older than us. And I can't think of his name, but he was so stinking funny. And then they had, I don't know, some, I don't keep up with all the entertainment people, so I don't know some of them, and I'm
Rob
ashamed.
Schneider, is that one of them?
Rob
Rob?
Schneider was the MC. Yeah,
Okay.
he was phenomenal,
Yeah.
and he didn't care
Deuce
what he said. He
Bigelow.
was like, "Joe's over there in the White House, 500 yards from here, asleep. Don't talk too loud. We'll wake him up, and he'll be confused." It was hilarious.
He retweeted my speech one time.
He
Or,
did.
or something like, yeah, like one of my YouTube videos he retweeted. And I said,
That's
Deuce
awesome.
Bigelow gets it. He tweeted. You know what
That's
Deuce
awesome.
Bigelow? Deuce Bigelow male gigolo. That was a big
That's
his
right.
like
I
big movie
forgot
when
about that.
I was probably in high school or yeah, I think I was in high school when that came out.
Yeah. That was
Yeah.
good. So that's my story from Washington, D.C. I wish you could have gone and been there.
Yeah, well, you should have went to Fallon.
You should have went to Fallon too.
Well, I didn't. I wasn't jumping on a plane and flying across the country. But I do get if you had VIP to all that stuff with your. So you hung out with Laura Logan?
No, we didn't really hang out.
He was busy. Too
Her
busy for you.
chief of staff came and hung out with us a little bit, and she was just so busy. But she did
But
call
she got
me.
you VIP like you were in the front row?
Oh, we were in the front row.
All you hillbillies with. Eric and
Yeah, and after it was all over, we were walking, we were going to eat supper, all of us together, and these two ladies come up behind us, and I think one was from Canada and one was from Montana, something like that, and she jerked on my arm and she goes, "I just want you to know that we watched you guys the whole day and you were just hilarious." And I'm like, "Well, I don't really remember being hilarious, but we did, it was inspiring and we got a little bit into it, but it was a different experience."
it's like that Charlie Russell book when the kid's looking out the train window and he sees a cowboy and he's like, "Who's that, Mama?" And he's like, "Well, that's a cowboy. He's almost like a human." Or I wish I knew wish I knew the whole thing, but it was like as a
You
zoo
know what
animal.
I found different in Washington than I did New York? We went to New York earlier this spring and it was a very, very robust, loud, quick, fast. Everything in Washington seemed to be subdued and hidden. Subdued and
Yeah.
hidden. That is what I got
Did you go
from.
to anything else? Like, did you go
Oh
do?
yeah, we went. We flew in there Friday at 11 o'clock, and by 12:30, we had checked into the hotel and we were walking. And we probably walked 10 miles that afternoon. Went and seen everything we could. The next day, we went and seen everything we could, and then the next day was the Rescue the Republic event, and I went to that, and then Thea would come and go, and you know a friend of yours, Dr. Brooke Miller, he lives out there and he texted me. He said, "Do not leave Washington D.C. without going to the Holocaust Museum." And I was not able to go, but Thea did go, and she said that exact thing. She said that is the most impressive museum and the deepest and the darkest and the most emotional thing you will ever go through in your life.
Yeah.
So I
I
I
went.
regret not going to that.
Yeah. I went in high school, and that's one of the things that, I mean, it was a long time ago, and there's a lot of stuff I don't remember, but I'll never forget that being in there and seeing the other people, like, there's Jewish people in there with their ancestors, and,
Yeah.
and
Well,
you just, yeah, and I don't even really remember. It was 25 years ago or whatever, but so I don't remember like exhibits and different things like that. I just remember that museum. It kind of changes you after you go through
yeah.
that. Um, yeah.
It's kind of like the 911 Memorial Museum, 9/11 Memorial
Yeah, see,
Museum in
that's
New York
my
City.
on my list. I'd like to go there.
Oh, it is so awesome, Jim. And I'm telling you, but you have to be emotionally prepared deep
Yeah.
down
And yeah,
because
and
it
that's
is
how the
so
Holocaust
heavy.
Museum is.
Yeah.
It's tough. Did you go to Arlington?
We did not get to go to Arlington,
Yeah, I
but
just
I
went on
have
a high
been there.
school trip, so we hit all the, those kind of things.
Yeah, us too.
And then like
What
I
year
said,
did you go?
25. I was a junior, so 97, 96 or
I
90.
went in I went in 1990,
Yeah.
and that was the last time I was there before this weekend.
All right. The other thing in the news is longshoreman strike that
Yeah.
people are talking about. I don't know that it's going to affect cattle. Cattle people are talking, but I listened to Corbett. If you, what do you think of the Corbett podcast? I'd like to get people's reaction.
Your Corbett podcast
Yeah.
was great. I loved it. But I like that kind of stuff. Um, I guess my question on the longshoreman deal out there is how will it, is number one, I've watched videos on both sides and I actually agree with both sides. I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's where I was going to say. I was looking
you
like,
know,
well, I don't even know if I agree with both sides, but maybe I disagree with both sides. The same way.
yeah, that's a good explanation.
And it's like what I was saying too, knee-jerk reactions are usually wrong. And so when you're like, and I also think when you're eh, eh, conservative Republicans, which I think we both have kind of been raised in those circles, you kind of grow up almost like unions bad,
Yeah,
private sector good, whatever.
right, right.
But at this point, that's not how it is. That's not right. I've almost got rid of that thinking because you learn so much about these corporations and how really
Exactly.
horrible they are.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like there's a lot more to these stories. My wife, her grandpa was union president of Amalgamated Meat Cutters in Sioux City, which was, or actually, he was a national union president of Amalgamated Meat Cutters, which is one of the biggest meat packing unions that there was. And this was, like I said, 30 years ago. He died before she was born, I think, but so 40 years ago. But I get hit, my father-in-law has kind of that perspective of things, um and when you look at what the unions did for those people back then, they did great things. And now, and my father-in-law always talks about working in a packing plant used to be a good job. Used to be a really good job. You get paid a lot of money, and you really secure, and people wanted those jobs. And my father-in-law is Greek, and so he grew up in that community, and where those immigrants come over, and if you can get
Yeah.
that job, that's a good
Yep.
job, even though it's hard work and it's rough work. You can make good money in your secure job, and that's gone now. And I think the unions had something to do with that being a good job. And so, yeah, like I said, I'm not going to really say. I think it's crazy when you hear 77% pay increase. Have you seen those on the automation though? Have you seen the videos of those automated docks
Yes.
where there ain't a single person on them?
I know. And they're
And
kind
then
of starting that.
it's weird how all this stuff kind of ties together, as
It
like
is.
we have this election coming. You have this strike, which the strikes I've read about are like during Teddy Roosevelt would go and sit down and he would settle these deals. He had the most vicious strikes ever during his and I've read a lot about him. So it's been a while, so I can't really say exactly what it was, but I think the coal miner strike was during Roosevelt, and he would sit down with both sides. Like the president would come in and he would get them to settle,
Negotiate.
so that the country could continue to function. You know what I mean? And we look at who we have now, like both the president and the vice president. And then it's also, hopefully it's opening people's eyes. Like, okay, you hate Trump, you hate how he treats people, you hate everything about him. Who do you want in that room? With that guy, have you seen, everybody's seen the guy with the gold chain, and he's saying, we're going to cripple you, we're
Yeah.
going to cripple
Yeah.
this country. Like, who
Yeah.
do you want in that room? Do you want Kamala Harris unburdening the past or whatever, sitting in that room talking her word salad BS? Or do you want Donald Trump, who's spent his life in New York dealing with unions, dealing with construction, and the same thing with the hurricane? Like you can hate Donald Trump, but who is going to be better at dealing with construction, dealing with rebuilding an entire community, who has spent the 70 years of his life doing that, or some bureaucrat who's never done anything and can barely spit out a coherent sentence?
I think that
I said
you've
I
made
wasn't going to get into politics, but here we
well,
go.
I think you've made a good point, and I will tell you this: the people of Appalachia, I heard Asheville was more liberal than Denver and Boulder. I don't know if that's true. I've never been out there, but I will tell you this: those people have changed their hearts
Yeah.
and their minds because of their suffering. And so I guess my question to you is will they be able, with these strikes, will they be able to negotiate, or do the global corporations not give a crap and they'll just automate it and those people will go away? How will that
Yeah, and
work?
that's the thing too. It's like everybody's, you like, well, we gotta keep progressing with technology, and we gotta keep embracing these things. But then you see this hurricane, and it's like, okay, well, what happens when, like, Verizon self-service went out this week? I was trying to talk to you about doing this
Yeah,
thing, and I
yeah.
didn't have, and we were weaning calves, so we were half a mile away from house, so it wasn't like we're not out like where you are sometimes, but still, there was three of us out there, and we couldn't make a call, we couldn't make a text, we didn't have internet. It was
And
like
how
it was like
aggravating
the
it
good old
is.
days.
Yeah.
But then you see like the hurricane and that automated dock, when technology completely shuts down. I mean, if everything gets automated, you can't do anything. And
Don't kid
we're out in this
yourself.
pasture with horses and dogs, and we're just fine getting everything done. And it kind of
Sure.
is almost like, well, at some point, we need someone that knows how to do something. And if you keep pushing towards this automation,
Excellent
we're
point.
not
Yeah.
going to have I mean, you need a lot of people that know how to do things if something breaks down. If you keep pushing, we're not going to have people that know how to run a forklift.
Well, but
If
you're
you
bringing
have
up
these docks and ports and different places that are 100% automated, what happens when something breaks?
no, I agree with you. And you're bringing up a great point of the importance of the ground level skill set that agriculture provides. Because with what we're seeing in Appalachia, with what we're seeing on these, well, all across America, but especially on in the ports, um, we have given over so much control of our lives and those productive duties in our lives to the federal government that in one flip of the switch they can shut everything off. That's how much control we have given over to the federal government and the global corporations. And so you make a great point in saying, the people on the very ground level, the actual producer, that where none of this, because there's not any amount of technology that's going to affect a cow calving a calf,
Right.
or a woman, or me when I was a kid hoeing the garden. None of that affects that stuff. That is the very ground level, and that's the importance of why I think we have to educate and get back to our roots. I love technology. Gosh, I couldn't live without my cell phone now. But we have allowed it. You like this AI stuff, Jim. This is so scary to me that they had. Like, did you see that picture of Trump walking through the water in the flood? Well, that
Yeah.
was AI generated,
Yeah.
and people thought it was real. And I'm like, holy cow, it looks real. So there, I don't know where we're going on this, but I do know we have to hold tight to our roots because we're going to have to go back to them.
Do you know what? And I almost think it's like I've been trying to explain like what we're trying to do with this podcast and kind of like here we are, we're out in the middle and kind of nowhere and to give this perspective, but this I feel like this is the explanation. Like we have all these things going on. Like right now we're in the middle of harvest and we have auto steer on our combine and all
Right.
this different stuff. And you look at more and more automation, and now you see these people at the farm shows, and they have this machinery that's out in the field running by itself. But I mean, one satellite goes down, and this isn't a dock where it gets to be November 10th, and you got a snowstorm coming, and what happens if the satellite goes down? I think these are the questions we need to start having because everybody's just pushing, 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 automate everything, AI everything. It'll be so easy and it'll make everything so wonderful. But I mean, like you said, you said our government flips a switch. What if some other government flips a switch? We were
Exactly.
talking about that because of course, I get excited. I like, oh, our cell phones go out. We have no communication. I was like, is this it? Is this it? And my brother, who's he's kind of, if you know him, he's like, well, actually, our pickups wouldn't start if it was an electromagnetic pulse.
My pickups would
Um,
because I got old crap.
yeah, that's and we were thinking about the ones that would start and the ones that wouldn't, but yeah,
Yeah.
anything with a microchip. So we knew it wasn't the electromagnetic pulse taking everything out, but it was
Well,
fun to think
uh,
about for a second.
well, Jim, I farm about 1,000 acres a week here, and I'm not a farmer. I hate every minute of it. So this summer, I was like, I'm going to run cattle on these fields, clean the weeds up and stuff. And I bought me a 1992 uh, Ford tractor and it has zero computer system in it. I guess the dashboard is computerized. It tells me it's digital, right?
Yeah, but it's
Other than that, it
really
is
you got a
zero. So
92 that's digital dash. It doesn't have dials.
no, the dashboard is digital.
Hmm.
But anyway, so it got late this fall and it was hot, and I'm like, I'm not getting any of this stuff. I'm not getting any of this stuff plowed up. So I hired a couple of guys to no-till everything, and it's turned out good. But when I'm farming and I'm trying to keep my rows straight, everybody in the country, all the real farmers, are laughing at me. These guys that I hired to do this, their rows are so
Yeah.
perfect. And it looks
AB
so,
line. They hit the AB line on the auto.
oh my gosh. So the guy that sold me that tractor, he's like, hey, you want to buy a steering system for that? And I'm like, well, I mean, it makes your rows look beautiful. That would be awesome. How much is it? He says, I got a used one here. I'll sell you for $10,000. And I'm like, I gave
I do try.
20,000 for my tractor.
I know. Yeah, I don't know.
So
Yeah,
I'm just
the
gonna do it
roads
the old
roads
way.
being straight were what they used to brag about. Farmers used to take pride in. Now it's kind of like the straighter your rows, the better you are at running, hitting the buttons on the auto steer.
Well,
So,
that's true. That's true.
all right, man. Have we done it? Anything else? Have we hit?
Oh, let's see. There's something else that we needed to talk about, and it was the
We got
debate.
through that good though.
Hey, we got to talk about this debate.
Oh, okay, yeah. See, I didn't watch it.
Okay, I watched the debate, and listen, I will tell you this up front. Um, Walls's policy sucks. It is communist Marxist policy. Okay. I have heard nothing but bad stuff about JD Vance. Okay. Everybody's like
Like
he's
what?
got a shady past, he's changed his mind, all this stuff. Okay, so
Oh yeah.
I haven't really paid attention to any of it. Well, we got into this debate and I watched the whole debate and I told Thea, I'm like, JD Vance is phenomenal. He rock star, rock solid. And Waltz was really bad in the first hour, but then he relaxed and he debated good. And so here's my whole take on it is JD Vance, if he'll work under Trump for the for 4 years, he could be our president. He could be. He's very stately,
Yeah.
very
I think
stately.
there's
He
a few
makes no
people that kind
mistakes.
of wish he was.
Well, I mean, now that's what Thea came away with it. She's like, these two should be running for president. But I don't think JD Vance is only 40 years old, right? Well, then I will say on behalf of Walls that he is a fourth grade teacher and he has more business being in the vice presidential chair than Kamala Harris has being in any chair. I
Mm.
mean, as a fourth grade teacher, he was nice. You could talk to him. They were
He
respectful of
seems like
each
the
other.
fakest guy. And that's like why I don't watch
He
it.
is fake and he's a liar, and they caught
He
him in a
seems
lot of
like the kind
lies.
of guy who, like, you see after, who you see him and he wants to come and talk to you and shake your hand and tell you how much he loves
Yeah,
you. How's your family doing? And he
yeah,
doesn't listen to a word you say. And he's like, "How's
yeah.
your, okay, great. I love you. You have a, and then he walks off and he didn't
Well,
hear
I
anything.
think he had the same. He was nice, but I think he has the same characteristics of every Marxist. He's a liar.
Yeah,
He
that's the
lied.
thing. He's just a liar.
He
I love
lied.
it. And the one thing I did see is they asked him about, and that's the thing there's like memes and stuff. Every question they get. Well, I was born I came from a middle class family, so they ask him, "Why'd you lie about when you went to China?" Well, I'm from a small middle class family, small town in
He
Nebraska,
couldn't get through that.
and it was like, what? Like, I don't
I
know.
know.
I feel
He
bad for the
couldn't.
kids in Valentine who now get I don't know. They thought of Valentine, Nebraska is getting brought up more than ever on the national stage because that idiot's from Valentine.
What?
He's from Valentine, Nebraska.
Who is?
Tim Walls. That's his
He's
hometown.
from Valentine, Nebraska? I knew he was from Nebraska. I thought he was from a small town in southeast Nebraska.
No.
Wow. I didn't know
Headwaters
that.
of Cherry County. Yeah.
Yeah, Cherry
You've
County has
been
more
you've been
cows than any county in the United States.
yeah, and Valentine's kind of it's a little spot. I bought a horse trailer there like 2 years ago.
I've
Drove
been to Valentine many times in my life, and it is the most beautiful country. Sits right on the north side of, I think it's the Loop River, and then you get across the Loop River, and that's the beginning of the Sand Hills. It is so beautiful up there,
yeah.
Jim.
Not
Gosh,
the most
it's
beautiful
true cow
town, but
country, huh?
it's not the most beautiful town, but I'm not gonna say anything about it.
It is beautiful country.
Yeah, it is. I love it up there. I got a buddy who has a place out Hidden Paradise. I'm not gonna say where it is. It's hidden.
Well,
But
I mean, if you go south of town there and cross the Loop River on that huge high bridge, and then you have that big bank of sandhills behind it. Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous. But I mean, Cherry County, Nebraska has more cows than any county in the United States.
yeah.
Cow capital of the
Ainsworth,
world.
Nebraska is where I got my hats from, my Lonesome Lands hats.
Ainsworth?
Yeah, there's a gal who I met through mutual friends, and she owned an embroidery shop, and And I was like, "Give me some hats." And so yeah, and that's right. That's kind of the bigger town.
Does
And
she make felt hats?
no, she makes those embroidered hats. I think
Embroidery.
Lonesome Lands. You got one.
Yeah.
I should have
Oh,
one.
those hats.
If I was
You
good
mean
at selling merch and I should be wearing one.
you mean caps.
Yeah, ball cap.
Yeah, ball caps.
Go to lonesomelands.com, click on
Yeah.
merch or store,
Yeah.
and buy you one.
I love one. I
Ainsworth,
gotta
right
get me
down the
one.
road from where Tim Walls is from.